Hello, hello, this is Patty Jo again. We're going to continue with the next witness from Darrell. Let's get going. Might as well go. Again, we're on day 3. This is a state witness. He thought he was going to stop the trial with those dumb cases about jurisdiction.
Okay. Did you say you thought Lopez was from 1995?
I believe that's the one that he's referring to.
If it's the same case, it's 514 US 549 for the state.
514-549.
514 US 549
Thank
from
you.
1995.
Thank you.
All rise.
I don't realize how tiny Sue Opera was. She's a tiny little girl, lady, isn't she?
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. State may call its next witness.
Thank you. And the state calls Battalion Chief Jim Hawkinson.
Sir, please make your way to the witness stand. When you get there, please remain standing and raise your right hand. My clerk, Teresa, will swear you in. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Please have a seat. When you are seated, please state your first and last names for the record and spell each.
Jim Hawkinson, Jim Haakenson.
Thank you. Go ahead, your witness.
Thank you. How are you employed?
I'm employed as a battalion chief shift commander for the city of Waukesha Fire Department.
That's a pretty
How
high
long have you
level.
held that position?
I've been a battalion chief for 6 years,
How
Wow.
long in total have you worked for the Waukesha Fire Department?
Billion.
22 years.
Yep.
Did you have any other type of fire or emergency work before you worked for WFD?
I did. I worked for the city of Pewaukee. I believe I started in 1996.
What kind of things are you responsible for as a battalion chief?
Everything.
As a battalion chief, I manage the day-to-day operations of an entire shift
Everything.
of firefighters, lieutenants, company officers, those kinds of things.
Could you describe for us in general terms how the Waukesha Fire Department is organized?
Yes, the fire department is organized into 3 separate shifts. These shifts are divided into 5 stations. The stations are strategically located throughout the city to provide response to any area of the city in a very timely fashion. The minimum staffing, meaning the minimum number of people on duty every day, is 26 personnel.
Which of the 5 stations is closest to the downtown Waukesha area?
That would be Station 1.
Okay. Can you describe for us the resources that are available at each of the 5 stations?
There are 5 ambulances and either 3 engines and 2 ladder trucks. So at each station there is a heavy piece of apparatus, an engine or a truck, and an ambulance.
Were you on duty working as a battalion chief on Sunday, November 21st?
That's small compared to what I'm used to, but totally adequate for the per capita. But in an instance where 68 people are struck and at least 20% would have to be transported, 20% of 68, that's more than the number of ambulances they have. So transporting would either have to be two, or they would have to get resources from other areas. But so they definitely exceeded the resources.
Of 2021.
I was.
Were you aware that the WAUKESHA Christmas Parade was going to be taking place that day?
I was.
In your capacity?
Again, the fire department, police department, the event coordinators themselves, they would all get together and have plans and contingency plans for problems, issues. What if there's a fire on Main Street during the parade? Things like that. How would they evacuate the area? Even the FBI came to Waukesha after the event to see if it was a terrorist attack. The marathons that had events at them that were attacks from terrorists, like Boston and things like that. There are plans. They don't always, sometimes the plan is to make it a multi-casualty incident or a mass casualty incident, which it's just based on the number of people involved.
As
compared to the
battalion chief for the
resources.
fire department, were you aware of any preparations that had been underway with your department, knowing that
All of
was
them.
going on?
Yes, we had a unit that participated in the parade. We also received a incident action plan from the police department relative to the parade operations.
Your Honor, Exhibit 1 is a map that's previously been admitted and published. I'd ask to publish that again for everybody.
Permission granted.
Mr. Hawkinson, if you'll direct your attention to the screen in front of you, this is Exhibit 1. Do you recognize this exhibit?
I do.
Are you able to point out for us on this map where Station 1 would be, or is it not on the map?
It is not marked on the map. However, it is at the intersection of Fuller Street and St. Paul Avenue.
Could you, it's a touch screen in front of you, could you just draw a little X where the map, where Station 1 would be if the map were a little bigger?
It would be right there.
Oh, I see, okay. And you've used a yellow arrow to designate that?
Nah, so it appears.
Gotcha. Were you at Station 1 that day?
I was.
Okay. At what point did your department first respond to a parade-related call for service on the afternoon of November 21st?
We received an alert at approximately 16:39. That's 4:39 p.m.
What was the nature of that alert?
Initially, it was an unknown problem, but given radio traffic that we had heard, we assumed it to be a vehicle versus pedestrian.
Okay, and fire department and police departments generally can cross talk and or cross listen on their radios. At my level on the medic unit, I could listen. Probably, I never would have talked on a police channel, but we used to be able to listen and have information. Then of course, animal farm that they are, my department, said that we weren't even allowed to be on the CAD and know what their notes were. But sometimes that would really be useful. But on his level, they can definitely hear what the police are saying and actually interact, I believe.
Okay, and what did your department resources do in response to getting that alert?
Everyone immediately assembled and began the response that was dispatched.
Everyone from
Station 1
1.
at that time.
Okay, and what happened next?
En route, we began to hear additional radio traffic to numerous reports of other people being struck. At that point, the dispatcher asked if I would like to upgrade the alarm, which I did, bringing all 5 stations immediately to the area.
Okay. And let me back up for a minute. Before getting a call about pedestrian vehicle, did your department respond to any other calls for service within the minutes before that call?
Not that I recall. We prepared to respond based on radio traffic we had heard referencing a call in Frame Park.
Okay, and what was the nature of that call in Frame Park?
On the police dispatch, it sounded as though there was some sort of incident with a man and a knife.
Okay, and what did your department do in response to receiving that dispatch?
We began to move towards the apparatus because we knew that Station 1 would be responding to that.
And did anybody from your department get to that call in time?
No, we were never dispatched to it. By the time we got out to the apparatus bay and to the rigs, we could start hearing the radio traffic regarding the vehicles and the pedestrians, and that was occurring on Main Street downtown.
Okay. Now we'll fast forward again to the point where we left off, where you said you had upgraded the call to all 5 stations, right?
That's correct.
What happened next?
We began our response. Getting to the scene was a bit difficult due to the large crowd of personnel fleeing downtown. Our response route took us right up Barstow to Main Street, and we turned right on the main, and that's when we arrived.
At some point, did you or your department become aware that it was going to require more than just your department's resources to respond to this?
Absolutely. As we began to hear more and more reports coming in from officers on scene, we began to realize the scope of this was exceeding our response capabilities. And at that time, I upgraded the alarm to a Mabus box alarm for life safety.
Can you
He's going to
explain
explain it.
for the jury what a Mabus box alarm is?
Right. Mabus is a system called the Mutual Aid Box Alarm System. And in this system, it is structured so that a pre-designated type and amount of resources come at each level. So for example, this box alarm brought an additional 4 ambulances, an engine, a squad, and 3 chiefs, in addition to all the other resources that were coming.
And is that where the scope of the response stopped?
Absolutely not.
Nope.
As we got on
Nope,
scene,
because if you're counting, and I'm only counting on the level of ambulance right now, we're still only talking 9 ambulances. And many of these people are critically injured. So that's not even the tip of the iceberg here.
began to triage patients, determining their level of acuity, and certainly over the almost half mile of the parade route where we found them, we realized quickly that this was going to require additional resources, and we upgraded to the second alarm level. I believe it was 4:52 in the afternoon.
Okay, and what resources came with that second box level?
That would be another 4 ambulances, another 3 chiefs, and another fire engine.
9s were
Do
at
you recall
13.
What municipalities or other partners that you work with were part of that response?
I would do them a disservice and leave them out for sure. There was a total of 15 municipalities that responded, I believe 23 units in totality.
The WAUKESHA Christmas Parade, that's an annual event, is that right?
That's correct.
And have you been the shift?
Bear with me. I want to bring up a map of Wisconsin. Okay, Green Bay. Where's Waukesha? Let's see. All right. It's kind of big for 5. So we're near Miss. So they may have even gotten. So here's Waukesha. There's Milwaukee. So we're talking mutual aid, probably from Madison, Milwaukee, all the way, this whole area, maybe even up to Appleton, may have helped out with this mutual aid.
Commander or battalion chief on duty for that event before 2021?
Yes.
Overruled. He may answer. I believe he answered yes. His answer may stand. Just as a reminder, if there's an objection, wait till I rule. Thank you.
Based on your experience in that position, in terms of public attendance, so the number of people attending the event, where does the annual Waukesha Christmas Parade rank on the large public events that are held downtown each year?
It certainly is one of the largest attended, if not the largest. 4th of July is also very well attended as far as parades go.
Your department and the partners that responded in response to your box alarm procedure, you didn't transport every single victim or person who was struck
No way.
in the parade incident, is that right?
Objection irrelevant.
Overruled.
That is correct. We did not transport every person. We transported a total of 24 patients.
Do you know how any other people were transported away from the scene?
I believe
Overruled. He may answer.
there were approximately 49 additional patients transported.
What time did your last ambulance leave the downtown area?
The last patient was transported by ambulance from the scene at approximately 17:35, 5:35 p.m.
I believe that's all the questions I have for this witness.
All right. Do you have any
So within 20
cross-exam?
minutes.
I do. Did you ever receive, well, first of all, good afternoon, Chief. Did you ever receive any additional information about the man with a knife in Frame Park?
Other than the radio report or the traffic on the radio,
Yeah, other than that.
I did not.
To the best of your knowledge, do you recall that ever being taken care of?
I
As
have
far
no.
as-
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
As far as, do you know if there were any law enforcement that responded to that radio report?
I am unaware of that. I don't have any knowledge of that.
Do you recall, make sure I get the language of this correct. Do you recall making a report with Officer Wagner?
I do not.
I could be looking at,
Well, we know you're unprepared, Darrell. You icky little man. I can't. That's just my thing today, icky little man.
To the best of your knowledge, does is Dan Rulo a firefighter on Ambulance 51?
Dan Rulo is a member of the department. I do not recall if he was working that day or if he was assigned to Ambulance 51 that day.
Many jurisdictions will cross-train. In the one I worked in, firefighters would often ride the medic units. They call them ambulances there, which is fine. Usually paramedics, we were cross-trained to fire, but we were not on engines or trucks unless you had passed a certain test and a physical test. So there was definitely a hierarchy in my jurisdiction. But I don't know if he even knows what to ask this guy.
Do you recall being notified, and I know it's kind of the same question, but it's phrased different in what I'm reading, so I just want to clarify it. Were you notified of a possible stabbing?
Again, the radio traffic I received was an incident possibly involving a knife.
And he doesn't know anything about that. He is so far and above that level. The only reason why he knows it is because it didn't get dispatched and it wasn't attended to, that it was something on radio. I mean, we could hear things on radio, and people who were way more into it than I was. I think I got broken like my first month in, where I was on the busiest, really, medic unit in the nation. Um, and I absolutely did not care what somebody else was doing. Now, now that being said, within my area, I knew where the other medic units were. If I passed somebody, I could tell if something was going on or something they needed help with. People would listen out for me, and thank goodness for that, because things do happen. But generally, if a call came in and it wasn't for me, it was none of my business. And if a call didn't come in for something that somebody was listening to on the radio, that was definitely none of my business, because I was already busy enough. But this guy and his level, he doesn't, no, he just doesn't know that. Unless, no.
Could you clarify what a hot wash is?
A hot wash is a term used to discuss events immediately after they happen. It's typically done after incidents of significant.
Debriefing, because as much as these people want to think that they're hard in the fire department and the police department, we're not. We're normal people. And when we see stuff and the things we see, one of the worst things you can ask, like a paramedic or a fireman or a police officer, is the worst thing they've ever seen, because you are really asking them to relive something that nobody should really see. So I know the curiosity is there. Don't ask it. Don't do it.
Significance, to gather as much information as possible immediately after, and to see how everybody's doing.
Did you respond to the parade route yourself?
I responded to the incident on the parade route. That is correct.
When you arrived to the scene, was there still any immediate danger that you recall?
It was difficult to gauge if there was any immediate danger. Radio traffic on the police side indicated that there had been shots fired, and certainly we had a large number of people fleeing. So that would be a tough question to answer.
Did you receive any information about the shots fired, who they may have been fired by?
I did not.
Did you receive any information that someone may have been injured by the shots that were fired?
I did not receive any information regarding that.
Again, the scope of his awareness of these shots fired, because he's like at the 30,000 foot level. Even on this scene, he may have been helping, but he's definitely organizing the resources, calling for the more resources, making sure that people are reporting to him. He may not even be on Main Street during this incident. They may actually remove somebody of that level to a safer spot, depending on if it's like the Boston Marathon or something like that. Um, and so, the level that he is coming from, the shots fired that we know now was the officer trying to stop Darrell from continuing his rampage. Um, his in his mind, in this fire chief's mind, he's thinking things like, do I have people there? Do we need to move people? Do we need more police resources called to that location for security? Whatever it is that he's thinking is, where are his resources and who he's responsible for, so his span. So he would talk to the person in that area, or of the location of where the shots were fired and were around, who would have a span of people 3 to 7 who are in that area. So he actually he's responsible for the next level down, who's responsible for the next level, who's responsible, on and on and on.
Do you recall who were the first arriving units to the scene?
The first arriving units to the scene were myself, Engine 1, and Ambulance 51.
So would it be fair to say that you would be B10?
That is correct.
And do you recall where you were positioned at when you arrived?
Yes, we turned right onto Main Street from Barstow, and we ended up probably 50 to 100 feet from that intersection, and I would say southwest of that intersection on Main Street.
Do you recall of any law enforcement attempting to clear the transportation routes?
At one point, I spoke with Sergeant Tokarski and asked him if he could assist me in opening up a route to get to the casualty collection point that we established.
Okay, so again, I'm not going to go through everything that this entails, but basically, again, he's responsible for the next level down. They're going to, everybody who can get up and walk and go to safety on their own, they're considered green. They can go. That's why we don't need to transport every single person. The next level are the people who need immediate medical attention and things like that. Then there's a transportation person who's going to coordinate where they go from that section and get sent to hospitals. And again, they have to also be dealing with the resources at the hospital. How many patients can each hospital take? What level of patient can they take? What age of patient can they take? Theoretically, all hospitals can take anything, but that's not necessarily how you want to use those resources. So, for example, if you've got somebody who's got minor injuries, as opposed to somebody who's got really major injuries or major bleeding, or it needs a higher level of care, you may send the second person to someplace that's got an ICU, and the other one can maybe go a little further out to a community hospital, or something closer to a community hospital that can maybe take 20 of them or something like that. He's talking about 73 people that were either transported by medic unit or transported themselves to some sort of care, and it was probably higher than that.
Do you recall any loss of power in the downtown area?
Yes, I believe 1740, so 5:40 p.m., sometime around then. All the lights went out downtown. The downtown area lost power.
Wow.
Do you recall receiving any information about what may have been the problem with the power?
Not at the time. However, later that evening, it was determined that a power line had gone down due to the high winds that evening.
So nothing
So
to
to the
do with
best of
you,
your knowledge,
Darrell.
it wasn't due to the incident that you were responding
Oh my God, he really has a huge and fragile ego. Like the larger the ego, the more fragile it is, right? Seriously, dude, you are not responsible for everything, and not all eyes are on you.
That is
Oh,
correct. I do not believe it was related.
no, Darrell. Jeez, you're icky. Icky. Icky little man.
to. Do you recall about what time you finally left the area?
I believe we
After
cleared the scene
5:45.
about 6:40, 6:45 p.m.
Do you recall if it was already nightfall by that time that you responded?
Just to clarify, are you asking when we responded or when we left?
Roughly around the time you responded. Do you recall it being nighttime, dusk?
It was not dark outside yet. It was probably close to dusk. I mean, there was still light in the sky.
Definitely nighttime when you left the scene.
That is correct.
Did you
So,
receive any information about why you needed to respond so quickly to the scene?
I'm gonna have to ask you to clarify that. We were dispatched by our dispatcher to respond to an incident, and in my line of work, that usually means you respond very quickly.
yes, all incidents get the quickest response possible. And I know they don't believe it where I worked before, because believe me, it would take us forever to get to these people. But all incidents were priority until we got there and decided the level of priority. All of them were. In other words, when you call, we just go. We don't go and finish our sandwich or stop at 7-Eleven. You're allowed to maybe pee if you're doing that real quick. But yeah, there's not like, let's finish watching this down before we go. No, oh my God, Darrell.
No information was given why you needed to respond so quickly.
Our system
No, and nor do we care, because even if information is given, it's usually wrong.
is set up so that our calls are triaged and our response levels are triaged accordingly. And in this case, this would have been a priority 1 response or intermediate response with lights and siren.
So it's really just get the call and go.
Yeah.
That is correct.
So to your knowledge, you didn't yet have information about why you needed to respond, but you know it was something that needed to be responded to quickly.
That is correct. We were initially dispatched to an unknown incident, and then it was clarified en route, as I mentioned, when the alarm was upgraded, that it was a motor vehicle versus pedestrian incident.
Okay, so I will tell you this. An unknown incident, okay, they used to call man down in the city where I worked, and there was so large of a homeless population. Man down on a street corner at 7 o'clock when the people from the county were all coming in was a big eye roll. Generally not anything. It's either nothing and those people don't want us to bother them, and it was just somebody coming in from the county that's never seen a homeless person before, or it was something super serious and you just go by and you stop there and you find out what it is, and you maybe talk to the person or people, or you see that it's a complete dumpster fire and you respond accordingly, which is what he did. This is No, we're not given huge amounts of information. And when we are, we usually don't take it seriously. I mean, we take the call seriously. We don't take the information seriously. Now, when it came back through from unknown to pedestrian struck, I'm hoping that it's just a car accident or something like that. I'm hoping that it's certainly not somebody who's been hit by a car, because those are usually very serious.
Motor vehicle versus pedestrian incident. Have you ever responded to any calls like that before?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
22 some plus years, plus wherever else he worked, Milwaukee or something, he said. My God.
You mentioned something about a accident plan or
An incident
if I'm
plan.
wrong, you can correct me, but
You are.
is that what I heard? Accident plan?
Incident action plan.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
What does that entail?
Oh my God.
It's a plan that's put together usually prior to or during an event that describes how resources are going to be deployed to manage or handle the event.
So it's sort of like just having something in place in case of.
It goes a step further than that. It's a plan that's in place or implemented, for example, in this case, to control access to the downtown area, to identify who is responsible for what tasks, such as clearing vehicles or establishing parade route integrity, those kinds of things.
Darrell, you're such an icky little man.
Outside of the parade incident, to your knowledge, was there any more needed responses to any other incidents that may have been in the area?
While we were on scene at the parade, I believe that we received 2 other calls for service in the city.
To your knowledge, do you recall if they were directly related?
I do not.
No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Very briefly. On cross-examination, there was reference made to a casualty collection point. Can you describe what that is?
So a casualty collection point is something that's established when there's a mass casualty incident or a large number of casualties or people injured. The goal of it is to get people to a centralized point where they can receive treatment and triage, or determining the severity of their injuries, so that they can be transported directly from that area. It is the most efficient way to handle a mass casualty.
That's not something that you would set up in a routine pedestrian versus motor vehicle incident. Is that correct?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled. He may answer.
How is it hearsay? He's in
That is
charge of
not
it.
something that we would normally set up in a pedestrian versus motor vehicle accident.
No, it's set up. Sorry, I didn't mean to get you mid blink. It's set up in the case where we know that resources are where need is going to exceed resources, and basically we move everybody to that area so that they can. And we will put medical personnel, so maybe people from the engine, or people who are paramedics from the truck, or even EMTs, could possibly even a GO team. A GO team is, includes surgeons and everything from the hospital. If it's, I've been involved in mass casualty where it's been like a 25 car pileup on I-25 in Colorado, where somebody's leg actually had to be amputated to get them extricated from the car. So these things he's talking about are intricate, high level, very well planned and thought out. Just boom, if something happens, we implement it. And immediately you know what your job is, you know what you're supposed to do, and you stick to it. So either you're a medical person doing stuff, or you're in charge of an ambulance and you go to where the ambulances are, they're all there, they get people and they move. And they go to whatever hospital the transport person tells them to. This is set up to be efficient.
Can we put Exhibit 1 back up on the screen, please?
Go ahead.
Could you circle for us on the screen in front of you where the casualty collection point was set up here?
Objection, relevance.
Relevancy.
Overruled. He may answer.
That is supposed to be the intersection of Clinton and Main.
So right by the 5
And,
points area.
From there, where were the injured people transported to?
From that point, they were taken to 5 area hospitals.
Okay. So not just Waukesha Memorial.
That is correct.
Waukesha Memorial is just up the hill off the side of this map, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. What other hospitals, if you recall?
Aurora Summit, Freighter Menominee Falls, Children's Hospital, and Freighter Hospital.
And aside from ambulances involved with your department and the other responding agencies, do you know how else victims were transported from the scene?
Objection. Hearsay.
It's not. He
Overruled.
would
He may
know.
answer. It's not hearsay.
Numerous patients were transported up by law enforcement, bystanders in the parade, and family members.
And literally that can actually be coordinated by that transport officer, where, you know, wherever they're lining up those transport units, they can line up different levels of transport units for people who can sit.
On cross-examination, in reference to this being a motor vehicle versus pedestrian incident, you were asked whether you'd ever responded to a call like that before, and you said, yes, sir. Do you remember that testimony?
Yes.
So I'd ask a clarifying question. Have you ever been involved in or directed a response to a motor vehicle versus pedestrian incident of this magnitude before in your career?
Objection. Hearsay.
Hearsay? It would be him.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Oh my god. Yes, hopefully this is a once in a lifetime. Look at him run. He does not want to be talked to again.
Your Honor, may I clarify? I don't believe this witness is on the defendant's witness list. I'd ask that he be excused from the subpoena.
He may.
Thank you.
Your next witness.
Say we call Nicole White.
All right.
Okay, I think I'm gonna check and see. Yes, we got puppies over there. Okay, gotta take my dog to the dog park. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm sorry I was a little scattered today. I actually got a job. I'm gonna be joining the ranks of the employed again. Sorry, that thing just came and she's laughing at me because I had to get a new mumps vaccine. So ironic. Okay, so if you want to contribute to WAUKESHA's Memorial Fund, I hope everybody had a great new year. I am having fun doing this and fun with all of you. Thank you for joining, and like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much. This is Patty Jo.